Every haunted place has a story with a dark past. This is Ghost Encounters Podcast. Due to the graphic and violent things discussed on this episode, listener discretion is advised. Welcome back, all you spooky people, to the 12th episode of the second season of Ghost Encounters Podcast. I am paranormal investigator Justin Torok. Unfortunately, Jordan is not with us today. She is feeling sick. Jordan, we love you. We wish you feel better soon. But with us back today is Hannah Wallner.
Hey, good to be here, everybody. Yet again, I am pinch hitting on the podcast.
I thoroughly enjoy when you are on the podcast because you share this passion and love for the dark and macabre with me.
I do. It's true. I live there 24/7, man.
So since it is just about Valentine's Day, we decided to do a dark, spooky Valentine's Day type podcast. This is Haunting Heartbreak. Love and tragedy have a dark, haunted connection that is said to be the source of many ghostly tales. Some believe that the intense emotions of love and loss are so powerful that they linger on after death, resulting in restless spirits who are unable to find peace. The ghostly remains of doomed lovers are said to haunt the places where they once lived and loved, their spirits forever bound by the tragedy of their untimely end. It is whispered that ghosts of these lovers are especially dangerous to those who dare fall in love, as they will stop at nothing to repeat the same fate that befell them in life. The passion and devotion associated with love can cause individuals to disregard caution and reason, leading them to make decisions that have tragic consequences. In this way, love and tragedy are connected, as the intense emotions of love can serve as both a source of happiness and a catalyst for disaster. Let's hold hands as I take us through some dark ghost stories of tragic love. I'm going to start with a story entitled Emily's Bridge. Built in 1844, this single-lane 50-foot-long bridge carries what is known as Covered Bridge Road over Goldbrook in Stowe, Vermont.
CJ and I went through Stowe, Vermont.
Did you really?
We did. We went up to Shelburne, Vermont, a couple of years ago for vacation.
Okay, cool.
And
you didn't go over any covered bridges, did you?
I don't think we did, but I did see one in a museum. They had like the whole covered bridge.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was
That's
wild.
crazy.
Yeah,
I think they have a lot of covered bridges up there.
Probably. It's very picturesque country.
Oh, yeah. Although, the picturesque country does come with some dark tragedy. Its wooden frame, darkened by time and weather, has been the setting of one of New England's most famous ghost stories. Some versions say that Emily and her boyfriend were meeting at the bridge to elope, since her parents did not approve. Others say that Emily was left at the wedding altar. Whichever love tragedy happened, the heartbroken Emily took her own life by hanging herself from one of the rafters inside the bridge.
Oh, girl, he's not worth it.
She must have loved him very much.
I guess.
Ever since, her ghost is said to haunt the bridge, and many visitors have claimed to see her apparition or feel her presence. Whichever love tragedy happened, the heartbroken Emily took her own life by hanging herself from one of the rafters inside the bridge.
Oh, girl, he's not worth it.
She must have loved him very much.
I guess.
Ever since, her ghost is said to haunt the bridge, and many visitors have claimed to see her apparition or feel her presence. Some say that if you cross the bridge at night and stop in the middle, you can hear the sound of her ghostly scream and the tightening of the rope she used to end her life.
Oh, that's brutal, man.
Then you hear her dangling feet dragging on the top of your car. Actually, even visitors have reported large scratch marks appearing on their car and themselves.
If a ghost scratches my car, I'm coming back the next day to ask for their insurance information.
She's pissed, man.
Don't fuck with my car.
Despite the chilling tales, visitors still flock to Emily's Bridge to catch a glimpse of the ghostly apparition or experience the eerie atmosphere for themselves.
Wow. Cool beans, man.
I would definitely go.
I would too.
I would try it.
Yeah, come at me, ghosts.
But could you imagine just like you stop the car and it's silent and all of a sudden you just hear like a scream and the rope tightening and you just hear this like dragging sound on the roof of your car.
Very Very atmospherically awful.
Yeah.
I like it.
This next one is pretty tragic as well, and awful. This one's The Old Faithful Inn. Yellowstone has many ghost stories, but the most famous is the ghostly tale of the headless bride at Yellowstone's Old Faithful Inn that has been a staple of folklore for generations. The legend starts in 1915 New York. The wealthy owner of a shipping company had a teenage daughter that was a bit of a rebel.
Is that putting it nicely, or is it... I don't know. Was she a floozy? Was she a flapper?
I don't know if she was a floozy, but she definitely rebelled against her parents quite a bit.
Get it, girl. You go get it.
She thought of herself as a modern woman and rejected the arranged marriage to a young man from another well-to-do family. Instead, she wanted to marry a much older man who worked in their house as a servant. Of course, for a wealthy family back then, that would be like, nah, this ain't happening. You're not marrying the servant.
Yeah, you can't, switch out of social classes. I'm sure you can, if you're already wealthy, you can climb up and be wealthier. Yeah. But, if you
don't marry down.
Yeah, then it's dishonor. Yeah. Dishonor on you, dishonor on your whole family.
Obviously, the father really had his daughter's best interest in mind when he tried to convince her that the servant was a gold digger.
Yikes.
And not the loving gentleman that she thought he was. But there was no convincing her. The young heiress and the old servant went ahead with the wedding. The father was heartbroken, but he had a plan. For a wedding gift, he gave the couple a substantial dowry. The acceptance of the money came with an agreement that the daughter would not receive any additional support from her family, and that they would leave New York forever. Wow. The father was hoping that this agreement would make the servant back out of the wedding, knowing that they would not inherit anything after the family died. However, the couple agreed to the dowry and went to Yellowstone for their honeymoon, staying in the Old Faithful Inn's room 127. It was a fairly new hotel then, having been built in 1903 or 1904, and it was the place to take a fashionable vacation.
It's a little bit like Overlook Hotel style,
right?
The rich people all go out into the forests to take in the air.
Yep.
Get some of that mountain air on your tuberculosis.
There's no tuberculosis in this story, but there is something terrible about to happen. It didn't take much time for the husband to show his true colors. On the way to Yellowstone, he lavishly spent the money at the taverns and playing poker.
No, he was an asshole. And the dad, it didn't even work.
Exactly. Shit. The couple had been a month into their honeymoon trip when they ran out of money. There wasn't even enough to pay their hotel bill. Staff at the Old Faithful Inn witnessed nightly arguments loud enough to be heard outside of their private room.
That sounds like my neighbors. Shout out to my neighbors! They fight in the parking lot so the kids don't hear them.
I'm sure the kids can still hear.
If we can hear them, the kids can hear them.
Yeah.
Shit.
By now, the bride had realized her misjudgment, and she phoned home to her father asking for money. The answer was no.
Denied.
Then, one night, the argument was louder and more violent than usual. The husband stormed out of the hotel room, slamming the door. This was the last time anyone would see of him.
Wow.
The hotel staff respectably gave the new bride her privacy for a couple of days, but then they became worried and took a peek inside the room. It looked like a hurricane had thrown every bit of bedding and clothing around the room, but the bride was not in the bedroom. A hotel maid ventured into the bathroom, and her screams brought many of the staff and guests to find the bride in the bathtub, bloody and missing her head.
Yikes.
Although they searched the hotel, her head was nowhere to be found.
Oh my god. Did he take it?
Well, in a couple of days, attention was directed to the highest point of the hotel, up in the crow's nest where the band played, but there was a horrible odor wafting all the way to the lobby.
Oh, it's flesh. It's human.
Further investigation revealed that the bride's head was hidden in the crow's nest.
You son of a bitch.
He was an awful dick.
Yeah!
The tragedy of a young woman who fell for the wrong man and met a violent end has captured the imagination of visitors to the hotel, many of whom report sightings of the ghostly apparition. Despite the macabre nature of the story, the Headless Bride continues to be a popular attraction, drawing visitors to the hotel to experience the eerie atmosphere and possibly catch a glimpse of a woman wearing a flowing white dress walking down the stairs from the crow's nest with her head under her arm.
That kicks so much ass.
Right?
I mean, I know she died horribly and was beheaded, but
she kind of sounds like a badass ghost.
Right?
Like, she's gonna walk around with her head under her arms, like...
It's like, all you bitch-ass dudes down here,
yep.
Get out of my way.
Exactly.
I'm coming for you nuts. That's so cool.
Now we're gonna take a trip overseas, and I'm gonna talk about Bride's Pool. Bride's Pool in China is a serene and tranquil place surrounded by lush greenery and surrounded by the gentle sound of running water. But beneath its peaceful exterior, Bride's Pool has a dark and sinister secret. The story of Bride's Pool is one of heartbreak and tragedy, and it is said that the spirits of the brides who drowned in its waters still haunt the area to this day. According to legend, the pool was once a popular spot for arranged marriages. Young brides, dressed in their finest gowns, would come to the pool to be united with their husbands in a traditional wedding ceremony. However, not all of these marriages were happy ones, and many brides were forced into the union against their will. Some brides, unable to bear the thought of a life of unhappiness and oppression, chose to take their own lives by jumping into the pool.
How was it, like a well? Was it like...
From the pictures that I've seen, it's like a very deep area of water with like a waterfall, and the waterfall trickles down and almost looks like a veil.
Oh.
Kind of why it's also called Bride's Pool.
That makes sense.
It's definitely deep enough to drown yourself if you want to.
Because I don't know, man. I feel like I would not be able to drown myself without being weighted.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to.
Because I swim. I how I know how that works.
If you're this unhappy,
I guess.
Maybe.
But how do you just like absolutely, like I get it. I get the unhappiness thing.
Yeah.
I just don't get the physics of it because I don't know, man. I've fallen into water in my life, and I'm usually just like, oh shit, this is moist, you know? Like
I don't have the details on how they drown themselves.
Yeah. Put some rocks in your pockets.
Yeah, maybe.
Do a little Sylvia Plath out there.
Who knows?
Not me.
But over time, the stories of the drowned brides spread, and the pool became known as a place of sorrow and despair. Some say that on still nights, the ghostly cries of brides can be heard echoing through the area, and that the brides themselves can be seen walking along the water's edge, their ghostly white gowns trailing behind them.
This is China, right? It was in China? I don't know if China is a culture that wears red for weddings, because I know there are some Asian countries that wear red for weddings because white is like a color for death.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm like...
Well, maybe they're wearing their death dresses.
Yeah, like now they're wearing white because they're dead, not because they're brides. I don't know. So it's one of those...
That's interesting.
The more you know, right? And I guess if you're coming in from the outside, too, and witnessing this as someone who's maybe like a tourist or going to see the spooky bride's pool, then you see a woman in a white dress out there, you're just like, oh... obviously this is a bride, rather than, oh, obviously this woman is dead.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's one of those.
And these visitors to Bride's Pool have reported strange and eerie occurrences, such as the feeling of being watched, whispers at night, and the sudden chill in the air that signals the presence of these brides. It is said that those who approach the pool too closely risk being pulled under by the brides. They are said to be seeking revenge against those who wronged them in life. Despite the warnings, Bride's Pool remains a popular tourist destination, and many people visit the area each year to witness the haunting beauty of the waterfalls and the eerie presence of the brides. There is no denying that the story of Bride's Pool is one of the most haunting and frightening tales in all of China, and it is a true statement of the power of love and tragedy. Now I'm going to talk about Big Moose Lake. Big Moose Lake, located in the Adirondack Mountains, is a relatively large body of water. 3 miles long and 1 mile wide, it covers a total of 1,265 acres and reaches 70 feet at its deepest point. It is the source of the Moose Rivers, all of which flow into the Great Lakes. However, Big Moose Lake is not just a beautiful vacation spot. It is also the site of a chilling ghost story that has been passed down through generations. Grace Brown was the daughter of a successful farmer and factory worker from the town of Ostelic, but living in Cortland, over 50 miles away from Big Moose Lake. She worked in the Gillette skirt factory where the owner's nephew, Chester Gillette, soon took notice of her. A well-known womanizer, he began pursuing a relationship with the beautiful Grace.
Wow, they have like first name, last name, and details.
Oh yeah.
It's not like just the bride this
Right.
time. I like it. I like the details. It rings of truth.
In 1906, 2 years after being in the relationship, Grace discovered that she was pregnant.
Oops.
She tried to convince Gillette to marry her, but when he did, saying that he needed time to think, Brown moved back to Estella to live with her parents. However, when she learned that Gillette was using his time to see other women, she moved back.
Oh, he's not worth it either. None of these dudes are worth it.
Nah.
Fuck him.
Once more, Brown attempted to convince Gillette to marry her and expressed worry about her family, saying that she would not like to burden her mother with the fact that she was pregnant before marriage. Finally, Gillette said he would marry her during a holiday trip to the Adirondacks. Bum, bum, bum.
You need it. Just break it up a little bit.
Brown and Gillette took a trip to Big Moose Lake, where they rented a rowboat from a man named Robert Morrison and struck out onto the water.
That's a bad choice.
Yes.
Never.
This is not going to end well.
No. Especially if the dude is already like, I don't know, kind of a dick. He already said he doesn't want to marry me and have this child, and he's going out sowing his wild oats.
Yeah, she's like pushing him, marry me, marry me, marry me, and then like he's like, okay, let's take a trip.
Yeah, let's go out into the middle of nowhere and like rent a boat where no one can hear you scream.
And out on the water is where he showed his true intentions. He had no intention of marrying Grace and was instead planning to leave her behind. They never returned, so the next morning, Morrison organized a search party. Obviously, he wanted his boat back, but I think he was also worried about them.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that guy took that chick out there.
Yeah, he's like, where's my boat? Also, these kids are missing.
Yeah, I have concerns.
The rowboat had capsized. A short distance from it, they found Grace's body.
Ooh.
2 days later, police found Chester Gillette in a nearby hotel. At first, he denied even knowing Grace Brown. Then, he claimed Grace had drowned herself in despair because he didn't love her anymore.
My guy.
Few believed him and knew that either he struck her, causing her to fall and drown, or he forcefully drowned her himself.
Fucking A.
He was tried and convicted of first-degree murder. On March 30th, 1908, Chester Gillette died in the electric chair. Had justice been served? Apparently not enough to satisfy the restless spirit of Grace Brown.
Get him.
The story of Grace and Chester quickly spread throughout the region, and many people have reported seeing Grace's ghostly figure wandering the lakeshore and surrounding woods. Some claim to have seen her ghostly apparition floating on the water, her hair trailing behind her as she swims aimlessly searching for her lost love.
That's another one that just kicks untold amounts of ass.
Right?
That's so cool.
Over the years, many people have reported strange and unexplained phenomena at Big Moose Lake, including eerie whispers in the wind, ghostly laughter echoing through the trees, and sudden cold spots that seem to come out of nowhere. Some believe that Grace's ghost still haunts the lake, seeking justice for her untimely death and the broken promises of the man she loved. To this day, Moose Lake remains one of the most haunted places in the Adirondacks, and many visitors still avoid the lake at night, afraid of encountering Grace's ghostly presence.
Wow. That's a good one, too. I wonder if she swims aimlessly, so I wonder if she's like face down. Could you see that? Just floating face down.
That.
Hair is trailing, I guess technically in front of her, just a big seaweedy curtain.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm picturing the Ring chick almost, you know?
Yeah. Or imagine her standing straight up, but under the water. Ooh. And she rises slowly, with her hair trailing behind her. That's a cool one too. I like the visuals, man.
Right? But imagine it's nighttime and you just see a woman out in the lake. What the hell do you think?
You're like, oh no, there's somebody out there.
Yeah. And then you yell for her and you looking around to see if there's anyone, and then gone. Disappears.
Or even worse, she turns around and looks at you.
She's closer.
Come for you nuts. I like it. I like that one too.
Now let's go to a story about jealousy and infidelity.
Ooh, we're getting spicy.
This one's called Castillo de San Marcos. The Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine, Florida is home to one of the most haunting tales in the country. The fort is built of masonry and considered to be the oldest of its kind in the U.S. and holds the story of infidelity and murder. In 1784, Colonel Garcia Marti arrived with his young wife Dolores to the fort. However, he was not a faithful husband and often neglected Dolores, leading her to seek solace in an affair with Captain Manuel Abella, her husband's assistant.
Get it, Dolores.
If he's not being faithful, then why should she,
right? Like, I mean, okay, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
No,
but like, I get it, though.
Yeah.
I get it.
The affair was eventually discovered when Garcia detected Dolores' distinct perfume on Manuel. Soon after, both Dolores and Manuel disappeared without a trace. Garcia claimed that Dolores had returned to Spain and that Manuel was on a special mission in Cuba.
Oh shit, so he killed both of them? It took me a second to process that.
Well, about 50 years later, a hidden chamber was discovered in the fort's dungeon, behind a brick wall. The remains of a woman and man were found, with some accounts saying they were chained to the wall, while others say they just found piles of ashes and bone.
How would you even know if that was a man and a woman if they were just ashes?
You wouldn't.
Yeah. Like, he straight cask of Amontillato'd them.
He did.
Yeah. He walled him in there.
Exactly.
That's bananas.
Sightings of a ghostly woman in a white dress, accompanied with a delicate fragrance, have been reported in the fort ever since. Some visitors have claimed to see a ghostly figure, who is believed to be Dolores, wandering the halls searching for her lost love. The spirit of Manuel has also been spotted in the fort, seemingly searching for Dolores.
Oh, man.
The story of Dolores and Manuel has become one of the most famous ghost stories associated with the Castillo de San Marcos. Visitors to the fort often report experiencing a feeling of sadness and longing while in the presence of Dolores' ghost. Some claim to hear a whispered pleas for help, while others report feeling icy, cold breath on the back of their necks. Despite the eerie, haunting presence of the ghostly couple, visitors continue to flock to the Castillo de San Marcos to experience the rich history and eerie atmosphere of the oldest masonry fort in the United States.
That's cool. That's a cool story. I like ones that have like the spectral sense.
Yes.
You know?
Very cool. And this one's unique. Like, they didn't discover this until about 50 years later.
Wow.
They didn't find the bodies till then. And
I guess that's a whole well, I guess he got away with it, first of all.
Yeah.
Because he's
he's
probably dead.
Yeah. They're going to believe him. He was high ranking, and he just said she went to Spain and he was on a mission.
Yeah, and I guess...
So that's that. He got away with it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that is my dark, ghostly, tragic love stories. We're going to take a short separation, and we'll be right back. The Spooky Shop is now open for Ghost Encounters merch. Visit ghost-encounters.com and click on Spooky Shop. This episode is brought to you by The Colony Meadery. If you haven't tried mead yet, it's alcohol made from honey, and it's the fastest growing alcoholic beverage in the United States. It's all natural, totally gluten-free, and delicious. And one of the best meaderies in the world is right here in the Lehigh Valley. Stop in and try a flight of meads, grab some bottles or cans to go, and experience some of the best booze in the world. They've got flavors ranging from tart and quaffable lemon laws and Wu-Tang Cran to cinnamon vanilla series of tubes and even the sweet heat of their mango habanero. Learn more at either location or at colonymeadery.com. Ghost Encounters podcast and show is sponsored by Phoenix Fire Media. Bring the heat to your online presence with their expert social media marketing, photography, and video productions. Visit phoenixfiremedia.com. If all you spooky people are enjoying the Ghost Encounters podcast, hit subscribe and give us 5 stars. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ghost Encounters PA. To watch full episodes of the Ghost Encounters show, visit ghost-encounters.com. And we are back. Hannah, what do you have for us on this volatile Valentine's Day episode?
Oh, that is a good one. I figured, I guess we're in keeping with the V's. We're going to talk about Queen Victoria. Oh, yeah. I'm a person who's really into Victorian mourning customs, and you can't really talk about the spawning of the Victorian mourning custom without talking about the the epic love story of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert.
Okay.
So the Victorian age is 1847 to 1901, which coincides with the rule of England by, well, they're in some colonies, by Queen Victoria. They are regarded as soulmates. They had this big, grand love affair, and I'm not super sure if they were lovers at first sight, but definitely at first meeting.
Okay.
They were into each other. Despite the fact that they were they weren't necessarily an arranged marriage, but they were earmarked to be married by their grandmother who set them up. And so
they were arranged, but they loved each other deeply anyway.
Yes, they did.
That's good.
Yeah, it's sweet. It is. It's sweet.
Unlike
you like to hear
Bride's
that.
Pool, you
yeah,
know.
Nobody's drowning themselves because of Prince Albert. However, they were first cousins to each other.
As I guess happened back then, but that's...
Especially with the royals,
oof,
you know? Yeah.
First cousins. not even like third cousins. First cousins.
It's a big oof. Most of what we know about their relationship is through Victoria's diaries. She was a very prolific diarist.
Oh, wow.
And she wrote of Albert upon their first meeting that she felt attracted to him and that he was extremely handsome with big blue eyes, fine teeth, and a delightful expression.
What's considered fine teeth back then?
Dude, I don't know. Especially if you're a royal, you had like sugar in your diet.
Yeah.
So like if your teeth weren't black stumps,
then I guess they were fine teeth.
Yeah, you're probably pretty good. But she described him as kind, sensible, good, and amiable, and that he made her perfectly happy. So it wasn't just the physical, it was the...
Well, this is starting out to be very nice and sweet.
Right?
Compared to what I was talking about.
Yeah, but that's, that's where you get the passion starts small when you love somebody. You love somebody and, I don't know, theoretically you have a nice life. They were together for 21 years, and they had a bunch of kids. They were happy. They were super happy. They were super into each other. At least until Albert died.
Oh boy.
He died at the age of 42 of allegedly typhoid fever, but it took a couple of weeks for him to die and was painful and unpleasant.
Oh, I can imagine.
But, at least he got to die at home. The Queen turned to mourning for really for the rest of her life.
Oh, wow.
She mourned for Albert for the rest of her life. Immediately, she had the servants, change nothing. Like he had not died. Like he was still alive. She had them bringing in hot water for him to shave. She would have them lay out his clothes in the morning.
Oh my gosh, she was really distraught.
She was
a little messed up.
Yeah, she was in heavy denial. She was really, really into Albert. He was her companion.
Yeah.
Father of her kids, So it's tragic that she spent a lot of time after that mourning her husband. She had statues made. She displayed mementos of his around the palace, and she spent a lot of time. She very rarely made public appearances after that. She spent a lot of time in Windsor Castle or in Balmoral, where she had spent a lot of time with Albert.
I was going to say probably with him. Right?
Yeah. Yes, she grieved him her whole life. She observed the Victorian mourning customs until her death at 81, and she had her court do the same for 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, 3 whole years. And I guess Victorian mourning customs were intense. There were a lot of things that you were societally obligated to do.
See, I've never learned about Victorian death customs, so I'm really interested in what these are.
I love it. It's all very richly symbolic, which I enjoy. There's a lot of iconography involved, and there's obviously a lot of there are things you need to wear, there are things you need to do. For example, you had to wear all black, which, people still do that.
Yeah, that one's a little bit obvious.
Yeah. You wear all black. Mostly women were expected to wear veils. They were expected to wear a kind of fabric called crepe, which is a apparently you're not supposed to wear it with anything else. Like, you can't wear it with satin, or you can't wear it with, I don't know, silk.
Okay, I'm picturing, like, fucking La Llorona in her black dress and veil, just, like,
Yeah.
wandering around, like...
You were supposed you were supposed to do it up like La Llorona style. You could wear no jewelry other than specifically mourning jewelry, which was typically made of jet. So it was like big, dark, black, coal-like stones. Wow. If you couldn't afford the jet, you could wear like garnet. You could wear imitation. I don't know how garnet's more or less expensive than jet, but black garnet was a thing. And there were... Depending, the time you spent mourning the person was directly related to who they were to you. Like, if, for example, if your husband passed away, you were to mourn for 2 years. But if your child passed away or your parent passed away, then the appropriate mourning period was 1 year. And if you...
Why would the parents be the same time as a child?
I don't know.
That's... interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like if I don't know, maybe if it's your adult, if you're an adult and you're mourning your own parents, you know, but if you're like a child, I don't think you can expect it to mourn your parents. I don't know how that works. Did they give the kids a break?
They had like specific mourning times.
They did, yeah, and like it goes further. I didn't write down all of them, but like there were specific periods for like an aunt or an uncle or a cousin.
Wow.
Like if your cousin died, you had to mourn for this amount of time.
Interesting.
Yeah, and for funerals, there was a lot of symbolism involved. There were specific flowers to mean specific things. Like obviously you want roses, but you want the colors to be as dark as possible. If you can get like a deep purple or a black, that's preferred. There are carnations, are a Victorian mourning flower that it signified death. You, if someone in your house dies, you're supposed to put up a wreath of black crepe fabric and laurel leaves so that other people know. And people just, I don't know, is this formal? Is it written down somewhere? Or do you know it through like cultural osmosis?
I guess, I mean, there's a lot of things we do today that's just cultural osmosis.
You know? You just know.
So, yeah, I guess back then it was just kind of like you knew.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess like, I don't know, they probably didn't have things like, the communication wasn't what it is today. You know, you didn't have the obituary section. You didn't have posts on social media and
that's true.
Things like that. So this was kind of like the way of, I guess, notifying the public, hey, I just lost someone. Either leave me alone or give me a gift or something.
Yeah. You know? My parents are dead. Bring me presents. or at least a casserole. You know,
right.
Bring somebody a casserole.
Yeah.
And Victorians are kind of the authors of the concept of a memento mori, which means it's either a little object or a piece of art with containing this death symbolism, which you can carry with you or wear. Often it'll be like a piece of jewelry containing jet, as we talked about, but it can also be made of hair or teeth from the deceased.
Nah, I ain't doing that.
No? Oh, man!
I don't know about wearing teeth.
Well, I don't know about teeth. But hair... I've seen some really, really beautiful, like, Victorian hair work jewelry.
That's crazy. It's just the hair from the dead person just made into jewelry. That's
like woven into lace or in little curly cues, or you can just keep like a little
They're
piece of it in
literally
a locket.
asking to be haunted by their loved one, you know?
They are, and at the time, I feel like if you grieve someone enough and you miss them enough, that's welcomed.
I get that.
You know, you can like come at me, ghosts.
I don't know about the teeth, but
yeah. But that's Victoria was into that kind of thing. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, her whole life from Albert's death, they were of an age. I guess she was about 40, so really around 40 years she mourned.
Yeah, wow, that's a
her
long
husband.
time.
Yes. But I started with this story to kind of give a little bit of context for the other story that follows it, but maybe not the last story that follows it. Because the next one, it makes it a little less weird, because there's already a precedent of very intense mourning customs that sometimes involve parts of a deceased person's body and or hair.
So we're going to talk about more than just hair and teeth.
Yes.
Oh boy.
Okay, here it comes. Next, I'm going to be talking about Mary Shelley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about what she did that
Right.
you're going to bring up, but I don't know the whole story. So I'm excited.
So, everybody, okay, I'm not saying everybody knows this, but if you don't know this, you should know this, that Mary Shelley is responsible for writing Frankenstein.
Correct.
The original, the official title of the book is Frankenstein, the Postmodern Prometheus, which is really, it's a classic.
Yeah. And
Like-
most people don't realize that it was written by a woman.
Yeah, and she is like the founding queen of the horror sci-fi genre as a whole. It's incredible. It's incredible. I really can't understate how extraordinary her life was. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley was born in 1797, already to two exceptional writers. Her father was William Goodwin, who is an acclaimed journalist and political philosopher, widely regarded to be the father of political anarchy.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he was like...
I didn't know her parents were writers and cool people too.
Yeah, she was involved. Her mother was Mary Wollstonecraft, who is the author of also the radical political book, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman.
Hold on. A woman... So... Mary Shelley was born in 1797, which means her mother was born way before that, and she was able to write a book regarding women's rights? Mm-hmm. She was way beyond her time. I can't even believe they allowed that to be written or printed.
Yeah, really, they were
crazy.
they were all regarded as radicals and anarchists.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Which I love. I love
course.
it. So she did have this literary pedigree of sorts, and she did write on her own. She didn't have any formal schooling, but her father taught her. She was encouraged to write.
Right.
And Mary Shelley was also this person who death kind of dogged her
Really?
entire life. Her mother did survive childbirth, but later died of infection, so she never really knew her mother. She and her family had already had this rift because her father remarried immediately. Mm-hmm. You know, it was the
As
time.
they did
back in the day. Right. He got this other partner to keep the house and whatever. But her stepmother didn't like her. Her stepmother vastly preferred her own children to Mary, so she was kind of on the outside. And however, she did remain still close to her father, and he encouraged her to write. He gave her what little schooling she had, and they were close. Actually, her father also introduced her to Percy Shelley, who was his sort of his protege in political radicalism. And they hit it off immediately. This is another love story.
Yeah, well,
so,
of course.
yeah. So they hit it off immediately, and her father was mad about it.
Really?
Yeah, you would think that being that this was his protege,
right. Oh, my
but he was
protege,
like,
you
no.
like my dog. Oh.
Because Percy was married.
Oh.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And they embark on this sort of pseudo-exile to Italy, where they go to avoid Percy's creditors.
Oh, jeez.
Because he was an artist. He was a political radical from a very upper crust British family, and they were like, "Dude, stop."
Gotcha.
But he's
so
like,
they go to avoid his creditors, not his current wife or her father.
no. They just left because of the money. Although I suppose the family situation didn't make
I'm sure it didn't help, but
Yeah.
like the main cause of action is the money.
Yes, but they were just so in love. Actually, the gothest story ever, Mary Shelley lost her virginity to Percy Shelley atop her mother's grave.
Oh my lord.
Yeah. She is just the gothest of us all. She's the gothest of us all. I love it. Get it. Get it, girl. Get weird in that graveyard.
She wasn't angry at her mother or anything. Why are you having sex on top of her grave?
She spent a lot of time in the graveyard anyway, so I feel like she was probably there. You ever just into that transgression, where you spit at death? You spit at this death that's been dogging you your life. I get it. Okay, I get it. I love it. I'm not weird, I swear.
We're all a little weird.
Yeah. All right, so they're traveling. They spent a lot of time in Italy. They had 4 children. Only one of them survives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they all died.
So more death is surrounding
More death. We're surrounded by it. It's the Victorian era. Mary Shelley is sad. And she's a person who, on top of being very intelligent, also has this deep sense of melancholy. We're going to backtrack a little bit and talk about Frankenstein some more.
Okay, cool.
So she wrote it on a dare whilst in Italy.
Who did the dare?
Well, she was stranded on this on like lakeside in this villa with Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and some other guy who was a literary great at the time. Yeah. And because they're all stuck inside with this horrible storm raging around, they think, hey, we're living in the Victorian era. Let's all write some ghost stories.
Yeah.
And that was, the birth of Frankenstein.
So she writes this story on a dare. Did someone else come up with the idea, or did they just say, like, hey, write a horror story about it?
No, it was all her. She got this flash of inspiration in a dream. The story is really to have someone who is so frustrated with death that they decide to spit in the face of God and create this creature.
Right.
They create this life from dead people parts in chemistry. On the dare, she won that contest. Her story beat out stories by Percy, Lord Byron, and another literary great.
So that was the whole thing, was to see who could write a better story.
A better scary story.
Hers has lived on for still to this day.
Yeah, more so than just about anything written by any of these other motherfuckers. Percy, despite really being the great love of Mary Shelley's life, he was not with her for a very long time. He did die, and this had a very great effect on her, really, to the end of her life. We're coming back again with we're getting back to that
grieving
grief.
For a very long time.
As is the Victorian way.
Yeah.
But anyway, Percy Shelley died kind of weird. While they were in Italy again, he went out on a boat with 2 other men. The boat was called the Don Juan, and he and these 2 other men boarded this boat to try and cross this like a small sea during a storm. And isn't that interesting? We've got more Frankenstein lightning strikes, isn't it? It's interesting.
It all comes together.
Mm-hmm. So he's out on this boat capsizes. In this storm, everybody's dead.
Wow.
They all died. They were missing for, I think, 10 days before their bodies all washed up, heavily decomposed on a beach.
Wow.
Yeah, brutal. When the bodies were found on that same beach, his buddies, Lord Byron and another literary great, who was a different guy than was there with Frankenstein, they burned his body. Oh. They built a funeral pyre on this beach, chucked him on it, and set him ablaze. Huh. However, one thing that was spared from the blaze was allegedly Percy Shelley's calcified heart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, and I know what you're about to say, but go ahead.
Yes, you do know what I'm going to say. Mary Shelley kept it. She had it. She kept his calcified heart, which somehow survived the funeral pyre that consumed the rest of him and was snatched from the blaze by one of his friends.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she had to fight his friend for it. But she kept his heart wrapped in one of his final poems, and she kept it in her writing desk till the day she died. That
is dark, but yet oddly poetically romantic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it was found by her son, who was named after Percy, and he found his father's heart in his mother's desk drawer after she died. Mary Shelley actually had a relatively short life.
I mean, he had a short life too.
He had a really short life. But Mary passed away at 53 of a brain tumor. Wow. Which is awful. But there's some debate over whether or not this like calcified lump of flesh was actually his heart. A heart, regardless of whether or not it was a little bit calcified, probably wouldn't have survived a fire that broke down all of the rest of him. But the debate is it could have been some random thing, but it could also have been part of his liver, which would have absorbed water if he had drowned and possibly stood a better chance of surviving the fire. But I don't know. I feel like a good person to answer that question would be Jordan, but she is ill. Hi, Jordan. Sorry you're sick.
Jordan, I wish you were here.
Yeah. Tell us the anatomy answers about wet livers. It may not have been his heart, but she thought it was. Yeah, yes. And the gesture stands as somebody who really misses her partner.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go from two very nice, heartfelt stories that involve really intense mourning to the story of Carl Tanzler. Have you heard of this guy before?
I have never heard of him.
Oh my God. I'm about to take you on a journey.
I cannot wait.
The journey is awful. Okay, so George Carl Tanzler, or also known as Count Karl von Cosel, was a German-born radiology technologist at the Marine Hospital Service in Key West, Florida. He developed an obsession with this young woman, Elena Milagro de Hoyos, who was one of his patients.
Oh.
This obsession that he had with her carried on well after her death.
Oh boy.
Yes. So, Carl Tanzler, during his childhood in Germany, he traveled briefly in Italy, and he claimed to have had these dreams where his ancestor, Countess Anna Constantina von Kassel, revealed to him the face of his true love, who was this beautiful, exotic, dark-haired woman. And she did this despite the fact that he was already married to a woman named Doris Schaefer. It already starts out pretty weird.
Yeah, per se, the ghost of his dead relative is like, hey, this is who you should be with.
Yeah.
Not who you're with now.
Not your wife, you know? In the 1930s, he immigrates to the United States and begins working at the Marine Hospital in Key West. This is where he meets Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos, and she is a local Cuban-American woman who has been brought to the hospital by her mother for an examination. It is then determined that she has tuberculosis.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's got the consumption.
She ain't gonna make it.
Most people with the consumption did not, but Carl Tanzler recognizes her immediately as the woman from his dreams.
Wow.
This beautiful, exotic, dark-haired love of his life. So he is immediately obsessed with this woman. He starts coming up with, like, cures for her, despite the fact that he's not a doctor. He's, like, a radiology tech. And he's like giving her random potions that he's made out of random stuff, which I can't really imagine would be any help.
Probably
to
not.
her with her tuberculosis. But in addition to all of this stuff, he showers her with gifts of jewelry and clothing and professes his love to her, but she is reportedly not into him at all.
Oh, that sucks for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks for him either way because she's going to die.
Yeah, but...
She's like, nah, I want nothing to do with
you.
She's
like, please, man.
She's like, dude, I'm dying. I'm coughing up blood. I'm not interested in doing anything with anyone right now.
Sir, please, I am very sick. And she does die. 1931. She dies in 1931. They did not know each other long.
No.
However, after she passed away, he went to her family and he was like, look, I really cared about Elena. Let me pay for her funeral. So he pays for her funeral. He pays for this like really elaborate marble crypt in a really nice cemetery.
Wow.
And like her family, who is, they're grieving the loss
Yeah.
of their daughter, sister, etc. So they, they allow it, and they're like, oh, this guy, how sweet. He really must have cared for Elena.
Right.
However, after she passed away, one evening in April 1933, Tanzler creeps through the cemetery where Elena is buried and removes her body from her crypt.
Oh my God.
He takes it home with him in a little red wagon.
Seriously?
Yep. He took her out of there, man. She'd been dead for 2 years. And he corpse naps her.
Wow.
Yeah. Brings her to his house. And he's like, I can rebuild her. And he starts tying her bones together with piano wire.
Oh my God,
and
it's just like Frankenstein.
Except grosser.
Yes! Piano wire?
Yeah, man.
He's a radiologist. He's a smart guy. He can't think of something better to put someone together with than piano wire?
He makes her into this, like, papier-mâché thing.
Oh my God.
And he's got, like, a big hank of her hair that he, like, constructs into this wig that he just, like, plops on her head. And he's just, like, made this gross, weird effigy of this woman who wasn't into him and kind of just wanted to be fucking left alone to die. Right. But his perspective is that her spirit would emerge from the mausoleum and, like, be like, Carl, you should totally bring me to your house. You should take my corpse out of here. And... yeah, so he would sit by her graveside and he would sing her her favorite songs, and she was apparently into this, so he said,
right.
Burley, man, she's dead. You gotta let it go.
I think he should have been checking himself out with examinations, because something's going on. He's seeing visions of dead ones, and he's seeing visions of others. Now he's
just not right, man.
Bringing out corpses and
He's
shit?
just not right.
No.
Dude wasn't right. He kind of mummified her and kept her in his house.
Oh my God. I'm gonna ask something weird because
okay.
it was in my head that
okay.
I know by the look on your face.
I know what you're gonna ask.
You know exactly.
I know what you're
going
gonna
to
ask me.
Did he do any weird sex things to this mummy?
The answer is probably. Okay, so there are conflicting reports. Truly. Like, for Elena and for her family, this is just, like...
terrible.
So unbelievably gross and awful that this dude was messed up, but also had the audacity.
Oh, God.
Oh, but, there are autopsy reports that were released 30 years after all of this, that there was, inside the corpse, there was a tube that had been inserted so that something else could be inserted.
Well,
yep.
That answered that question.
Yep. And while this is where the debate happens, because there were no photos taken, and while this was noted, it wasn't really, nobody's really sure if this was, just something that was made up after the fact to be even grosser.
Okay.
Or if this was actually something that happened.
Right.
So the answer is there's no conclusive evidence.
But knowing how weird he is,
he probably violated her corpse.
Yes, unfortunately.
When it was discovered that he had removed Elena from her grave, there were rumors circulating. So one of Elena's sisters went to Carl's house and kind of creeped at his window. Yeah. And through his window, she saw him in a room in his home dancing with the effigy of
Oh my God, imagine the horrors, the shock, the terror that you'd feel if your sibling died and her body is missing, and you go to this dude's house and he's dancing with her mummified corpse.
Yeah. Dude, you gotta crawl in the window and beat the shit out of him.
Wow.
There's nothing else you can do in that situation.
Jeez.
It's awful. It's very awful. But she found that. and she called the police, and they came for his ass.
Well, good.
They came for him, and he went to jail for some time. He was ultimately released due to being really messed up.
He definitely was.
Explains, does not excuse. Right. There's nothing that can make up for, the violation that took place upon Elena's body that was disinterred by this creep and her family, who now knows about it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Carl Tanzler finished out his life in 1952 in the care of his wife, Doris, who looked after him.
She still looked after him knowing he did this?
Yeah.
Strength for that woman, I guess, but
yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
So, no, I'd be like, sorry, bro, you gotta go back to jail, because you're not coming in my house.
Yeah, no, you literally, technically cheated on me with a corpse.
Yeah. And back in the day, sensibilities were different, and he was kind of regarded as, this poor, besotted romantic.
I wouldn't call it romantic.
No, I wouldn't. I'd call him a gross creep.
Well,
that was the gross, weird story.
Well, if that story doesn't say haunting heartbreak, I don't know what does.
I will be haunted by that story for quite some time. And now you know about it too.
I'm going to be thinking about that for a couple days, I think. Especially when I try to sleep at night. I'm going to be thinking about this dude. Wow.
I saved the grossest for last.
You did. That was good. We don't technically have a spooky fan story for today. Oh, no. However, Hannah has been on the podcast a few times now, and we haven't discussed something that we have done together. Back in college, Hannah and I did a paranormal investigation together in Elmira, New York.
We were two little baby ghost hunters.
Yes, this was in college. This is when I first started Ghost Encounters. And in Elmira, New York, there is the site of an old Civil War prison. Nothing there is left. It's literally just the grounds. So there's no structures. There's a plaque that says a little something about it, but that's pretty much it.
Some flags. There were flags.
Yeah, there were flags. One thing that was cool is when we were trying to ask the locals about it, some people had no idea that there was Civil War prison even there, but then those two dudes that we went up to,
the guys who didn't want to be on camera.
Yeah, but they had really cool stories about the one dude, remember his grandmother actually helped feed some of the prisoners through the walls. So since this was a northern Civil War prison, it held Confederate soldier prisoners. This place was only supposed to house a certain number of people, and as we know, as things happened, it was overcrowded by probably tenfold what it should be.
To say the least.
There's this small ravine. That's where the prisoners got thousands of prisoners bathed, washed their things, and also got their drinking water.
Yeah.
When we, knowing the story, when we saw that little ravine and we knew that thousands of people used that for all those purposes, we were really grossed out.
Yeah, it was not even it wasn't even a pond.
No.
If that was in my yard, that's something that you call a guy to come clean up.
Yeah. It just looked like, there's a spot in the yard that, fills up when it rains. That's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, it was
it was long. It wasn't very deep. It wasn't very wide. It was just long.
And stagnant.
Stagnant, yes.
Yeah, it was just this big, gross patch of standing water.
And then across from that is an area that was called Smallpox Island. It was right across the ravine, and that's where this smallpox hospital was when smallpox broke out in this Civil War prison.
And they had a mad doctor, right?
It was eerie to be there at night, especially college kids being in a foreign city at night, ghost hunting.
Yeah, trying not to scare themselves too bad.
Not to say anything bad about Elmira, New York, but
there wasn't much out there.
There's nothing.
Yeah, there really wasn't very much out there. There was
really
an Applebee's.
I don't even think that was technically in Elmira. That was like in like the outskirts. The only thing Elmira had was like there was a McDonald's and a Wegmans. There was a Wegmans. There was a nice Wegmans.
That was a very nice Wegmans. It was residential. There was like a lot of townhomes.
Yeah. But during our investigation, we did capture a few things that were pretty memorable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The one I remember is, I wouldn't necessarily call it an EVP because it's not a voice, but it was an audio phenomenon, and where we heard the sound of what sounded like hooves tapping on the ground, like a horse galloping. Then we had 2 actual EVPs, but they had a southern accent on them, and I've never gotten an EVP with like an accent like that before, and I was so excited when I heard it. But it makes sense because this place housed Confederate prisoners, so they would have accents. One said, "Hey Yank,"
which
remember that?
Again,
they called us a Yank, of course. And then we had that other one. It was like a long sentence. He was like, "Quick, come on, get up, come on." Yeah. It was really cool, and it was like you could hear that southern accent coming through on these EVPs.
It was absolutely bananas, man. Yeah. And I try to approach the paranormal with I don't think skepticism is the right word, because I do very much want to believe. Yeah,
not skepticism, but you're like me, you're not a person that's going to say every single thing we see in here is paranormal. Yeah. You're like me, and you have a scientific mind, so you try to think about things rationally. However, things occur that shouldn't be occurring, and there is no rational thought or anything like that, you know.
And it was us in a field, and it was so quiet.
Very quiet. It
was so quiet.
That town was very quiet because there's nothing in the town.
Yeah.
It was kind of eerily quiet. You know, like around where we live, it does, like at night it's quiet, but it's not totally quiet.
Yeah, there's still like a siren or something way off in the distance.
You hear cars going by.
Traffic.
Sometimes you'll hear a train or something, anything.
Yeah.
You know, but this was eerily quiet for a place that's not in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And it was kind of, and we were near the water too.
Yeah. So it was right on the edge of the water.
Yeah. So I would think there would be at least some kind of critters going down there for a drink, but there was really not very much out there.
Yeah, we did not care. We were just young and excited and just out in this field where there was a Civil War prison.
The cemetery was cool.
Doing a ghost investigation.
Yeah. They had the monuments up there were interesting.
Yeah. That's right. We did go to that cemetery.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, Civil War cemetery. That was cool.
There were so many tombstones.
Yeah.
Too many tombstones.
Yeah. That's...
Because, unfortunately, of course, a lot of the prisoners perished.
Yeah. They all died of... Well, probably there was bad drinking water and smallpox and just about every other thing that you could imagine when you've got, like, a bunch of malnourished people breathing on each other.
Yeah, they didn't have enough to feed them. It was terrible. Yeah.
And we had that professor who wrote that book, didn't we?
Yeah, Dr. Gray wrote a book on Elmira, New York. So I was taking his history class, and he was going to have us read a book about Anderson Prison. And I wanted to read something that was more local because I knew I wanted to do a Ghost Encounters episode on a Civil War prison, but I wanted one that was closer. And he told me he actually wrote a book on Elmira's Civil War prison. And I was so excited. And he was so excited that I was interested because he literally wrote the book on it. And so instead of reading the one on Anderson, I read his book, which was extremely well written, fascinating. I mean, he's a great writer. He's a great historian. Did a great job.
I didn't read you guys. I'm the asshole.
It's okay. You didn't have time.
It's true.
But yeah, after reading that, I learned about the tragedy of the Civil War prison, and it was only a few hours up north from East Stroudsburg University, and so we took the trip. It
was like 5 hours, guy.
I would say 4.
Dude, it was so far. It was so far to drive at like 4 a.m.
Yeah, that was a bit rough.
Yeah.
I didn't think that one through.
No.
Airbnb didn't exist.
It didn't. Wow. Yeah, it really didn't.
No.
It's totally a different world.
Yeah. But shout out to Dr. Gray for, writing that book and the reason why Hannah and I went on this paranormal investigation.
Yeah, Dr. Gray, hell of a guy.
He is. He was, one of my favorite teachers. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Jordan took his class too.
Oh.
And she loved him too.
Man, I never had him for a thing.
He's honestly like one of the great teachers of ESU. Like, definitely, hands down.
And he was a good interview too. Because I remember that was really...
I did an interview with him on camera about it, and, you know, he was definitely all excited.
Yeah, he was the guy.
That's his thing. He's kind of like his expertise is Civil War prisons.
Wow.
Yeah, he does lectures and speeches and all kinds of stuff all over. Well, till time do us part, because it is the end of this podcast episode, unfortunately. Thank you all so much for listening. Our podcast has been growing exponentially since we started, and it keeps growing. I thank you all for listening. If you are listening, please give us 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps us out. Spread the word, share it, especially if there's an episode that you really like, share it around, send it to people. And don't forget to send in your spooky fan stories. We need more stories, and of course you can remain anonymous if you wish. If anyone has ever encountered any kind of ghost, spirit, or weird phenomenon, write your stories into GhostEncountersStories@gmail.com, or you can message us on social and all that.
Send us some alien stories. I want to read them.
Ooh, we haven't had any alien stories coming from people yet. I know there are people out there who are listening that have encountered or seen UFOs, aliens, etc. Because I know you're out there.
Yeah.
So let us know your stories. You can remain anonymous if you want to. I myself have seen a UFO, but I will talk about that on another episode. Yes. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Stay spooky.
And if you are going to keep a piece of your deceased loved one, at least make sure that they are into you.